Alright guys, well the time has come to replace the pan gasket on the 04. And so I figured I'd make a video on replacing the oil pan, replacing the pan gasket, and reinstalling the oil pan on this 04.5 Dodge Ram 3500 Cummins. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to pull my valve cover off because one of the rubber grommets on the valve cover bolts, yes, there's a plug there, the handle just broke off. One of the valve cover bolts, the grommet on it is leaking, so I picked up a couple of those from CPP, I think, .com, Cummins Performance Products. And so I'll be replacing that because it is just dousing the top of the engine with oil from the blow-by. It does have a rebuild on it, however, I have a tune on it, so it does have a little bit of blow-by on it. It's nothing major really, but it's enough to, if you have a leaking gasket on your top side, it's going to make it blow out. So we're going to be doing that while we're at it. While I have the valve cover off and the oil pan off, I'm going to go ahead and set my valve lash while I have the pan off, just because that's really about the only good way for me to find top dead center on this, is with the pan off, because I can turn the motor, probably on the harmonic balancer or something, I can turn the motor over, find when the piston hits the top, and I can adjust that valve lash. So the reason I'm replacing the pan gasket is because I'm tired of this thing just bleeding all over the ground everywhere I go. As you can see, that's really wet. That's because when I rebuilt the engine, long story, but I rebuilt the engine and had a radiator hose blow up here a few thousand miles, about 6 months later. And me being the dummy I am, thought that I could limp it home with, turns out, no coolant in the system. And so I overheated it, and it messed up a bunch of gaskets and all that. But the worst part about it is when it overheated it, it blew an injector. An injector hung open, and that ruined a valve seat. I actually just scrapped the head last week. Otherwise, I would show you the valve seat. I do have the piston still. So yeah, if you want to know what a bad piston looks like, that's it. That was several $1,000s in repair right there. Had to get a new head and all that. Well, when I put this, because I had to replace the piston, so I had to pull the pan gasket off when I replaced the head. When I did that, I was running out of RTV silicone, and so I didn't have a lot left, but I needed to get the truck back together, and so I put it back together with what I had, and now it's leaking. So here's what I have for this project. I have 3 gallons, 12 quarts, Shell Rotella T5, because that's what they had at O'Reilly's when I was up there. I have a Wix oil filter, 57620. I have a tube of Permatex black gasket maker, made for oil pans and stuff like that. It's oil resistant. And then I have the Felpro oil pan gasket. This is OS 30738. So a couple of things you're going to need. It's going to help if you have an engine hoist, but if you don't, you're going to need a hoist of some kind to get this oil pan off, because I'll tell you why real quick. I'm going to drain the oil today and get the pan replaced tomorrow. That'll give it plenty of time to drip dry and get everything out. But if you look back there behind the axle, you have the transmission in your way. This is a manual transmission truck, so the bell housing on it is possibly a little bit different from an automatic, meaning that you could have a little bit different time if you have an automatic, but you're probably still going to have the same issue. So what we're going to do is we're going to take loose the bolting, the mounting bolts on the cross arm back there where the transfer case is. We're going to take that loose so that we can lift this engine up how we need to, and we're going to have to unbolt the engine mounts. They're up in there. We're going to take the engine mounts loose, and then we're going to have to actually hoist this radiator, or this engine up. Now, I will tell you, last time I did this, I poked a hole in the radiator because of these bolts right here that hold the fan shroud on. So this time, we're not going to do that. We're going to take care to not do that. We'll probably take those brackets loose. Looks like it's 2 bolts right there, one on each side of the harmonic balancer down here, and we're gonna do that. See how wet and oily it is, and how it's got everything, literally everything under here is oily. While we're at it, I'm also going to take the turbo oil tube return line right there, since I replaced the turbo on it, if it'll focus in on that particular part. There it is right there. Focus. There it is. So, we're going to replace the O-ring on that and get that jammed back down in there from replacing the turbo, so it'll quit dripping there. And then I'm going to, once I get everything replaced, I'm going to soak this thing down in a bunch of Dawn dish liquid, and hopefully I can get most of this oil out from under here. Everything that I can get access to, at least. Wish I had a steam cleaner, but I don't. So that hopefully will take care of most of my leaks. Like I said, I'm about to drain the oil out of it right now. It's due for an oil change anyway. I intentionally did not go back and get an oil change on this run, just because if I'm replacing the pan gasket, I'm going to have to drain the oil out and everything like that. So that's kind of the process we're going to go through. You're going to need an engine hoist. We're probably going to lift from this point right here. You really won't have to worry about too much else. We may take the air box off. We should have enough clearance to pick it up and not hit the firewall back there. If not, we'll pull the valve cover off. That will give us a little bit of extra room. All your belt drive and everything is going to still be connected. Radiator hoses will, hopefully they'll flex with us, and we won't have any problems out of that. When I did the pan gasket last time, the head was off of it, so it had a lot of parts that were missing off of it. Hopefully we won't have to take too many of those off. I'm going to guess it's probably going to take me about 4 hours to do all of this, to replace the pan gasket, do the valves and everything like that. But we're going to dive off into this tomorrow. The first thing I'm going to do, though, right now, when I get off this video, is I'm going to drain all the oil out, and then it'll be ready tomorrow. Hopefully it'll have had enough time to drip free that there won't be too much oil left in there. It won't be too much of a cleanup. So, yay. It's time to get it on. Alright, guys. The day has come. It's time to get this pan gasket over with. As you can tell, I know I'm going to get dirty, so I'm wearing my grease monkey clothes. I also wanted to show you, I had said that I'm going to replace the bolts with the grommet for the valve cover. Here's what one looks like right here. Let me pull it out. Kind of goofy looking, but here they are. So they have this rubber grommet on here to seal the valve cover off. And one of them, the grommet is messed up on it, so it's leaking with the blow-by. These are $40 a piece if you get them from CPP Diesel, and that was about the only place that I could find them. I only bought 2. There's like 8 or 10 of them on there, I think. The Cummins part number on these is 3957203. Could have gone to a Dodge house and picked them up, but I didn't really want to do that because they probably would have been $60 or $70, and I really couldn't find them anywhere else online. The fun fact, though, is you can find the ones for the 2nd gen and stuff online multiple places, and they're cheaper. I don't understand it. But anyway, so here we are. It's been draining all night, all day. It's been draining for close to 24 hours now. It's time to dive off in it. We're going to pull those 2 pans out from under there, and the first thing that I'm going to do is loosen the motor mounts, loosen the mounts for the transmission on the cross arm. We're also going to have to loosen up this mainframe right here. Not mainframe, but this cross arm. Take this loose, that loose, 2 bolts over there. We'll just leave it attached to the radiator. That way, whenever we go to lift it up, it'll pull the intercooler and everything up with it, hopefully. That's the goal. Everything will move up together. Like I said, we don't have to clear very far. We just need a little bit to get it up to where we can get that pan off. So we'll go ahead and pull that loose. Set it over here. And yeah, I'm gonna grab my impact and bunch of sockets and stuff like that, and we're gonna dive off into this. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is on this cross arm right here, we're gonna pull these two bolts. There's one here and one on the other side. That's gonna free this transmission up, so when we pick it up, when we pick the motor up, we're not putting a bunch of stress on this mount, this transmission mount. It'll give us a little bit of extra play to work with. You can see all the oil and everything under here. That puddle right there is just strictly from it dripping from right here, and that's engine oil too. That's not transmission fluid, that's black engine oil. This is why I'm doing this, because this is just absolutely driving me crazy. I can't even go to a customer's place and park it somewhere and feel comfortable, because I'm always, hey, I got an oil leak, I don't want to park on your concrete. And some people are picky, some people aren't. But I don't want to spot up somebody's brand new fresh concrete at a customer's house. That is a 15 millimeter on the bottom right here. And these are a pain in the butt to do, because that nut is hard to get to on the top. And I'm probably going to have both hands for this, but we're going to break this loose. And we're going to set these bolts and nuts aside over here so that they're still here to put back on. Okay, those two are out. This one on the passenger side, sorry, the light is really blinding right there. This one on the passenger side is a little bit harder to do. You don't have quite as much clearance between here, so you may have to use a box end wrench once you get it broke loose. This one wasn't as bad. Beware, it's going to be a pain in the butt to line it back up to go to mount it again, but you don't want to put a lot of strain on that. And now we're going to move up front and we're going to pull the motor mounts loose. And then we're going to probably go ahead and work up top, get everything freed up there so that we can do it. The motor mounts, there's one right there behind the starter, well, technically in front of the starter as far as the truck position is concerned. The other one is over here. It's dark over here. Let me turn the flash on. This one is over here by the turbo. There's that oil tube that we have to put back in while we're down here. Replace the O-rings on it, get it jammed back down in there really good. And so we're gonna work on that. I don't remember what size any of that is, so I'm gonna have to figure that out again. But yeah, here we go. Okay guys, so this one's a pain in the butt on the driver's side. It'll focus. Okay guys, so this one's a pain in the butt on the driver's side. What I wound up doing is creating this Franken impact extension here. Freaking extension. Don't judge my use of chrome. I do it all the time. I've only ever busted one. That's 3/8, because just that's what I have, down to a wobble. And then we got this longer, that's like an 8-inch extension. You could do it with a 6 or something, but that's what I had. You can put that on the bolt side, on the front side of the engine mount. It's a 17 millimeter. And then on the back side, you can come back here. You can put a box in on the back side for a backup. Passenger side is not that hard at all. I just used one extension and a wobble and was able to pull the bolt side loose on this one and then put box in on the other side to hold back up. You're going to want to get these loose. You're going to want to run the nut all the way out to the end of the bolt, because trust me, later on when you're trying to drop this thing back down in there, it's a pain in the butt. You're going to want that. So now let's go top side and I'll show you what we're going to do up there. Okay, so like I said, we're going to pull the air intake out. I got an SMB, so mine's different from stock obviously, but it's not hard to take these off. You pull, there's a worm gear clamp down there. Pull it off on the intake side is usually the easiest one to get on and off. Unplug your MAF sensor down there, and then you can just, if you have a cold air, just pop your filter off and leave it in the hole. And then you can slide that out, set that aside, make it a little bit easier. It'll give you a little bit more room, give you a little bit more light to work with too. It'll give you a little bit more space to work with. So, let me put my screws back in the hole so I don't lose them. And then we're going to pull this cross member right here. We're gonna loosen it up and have to figure out what size those are. It's been a while since I've messed with that, so I don't remember what those are, but we'll get there in a second. Okay, so the bolts that hold that cross member in are 13 millimeter. The little nut that goes on top of your air box, which it should be the same on stock, is it's an 11 millimeter. And then once you get that loose, you're gonna have to pull that up, and then you're gonna have to pull that other one loose. And I'd like to say that's a 13 as well, but it doesn't look like I have a 13 deep well in this kit. Half inch might fit it. Yeah, half inch fits it. So let's pull that one loose, and then this cross member will be free. Whoops, got another socket already. Okay, that stud is loose now. And now that's free. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this plastic valve cover off right here. Get it out of the way. It's a 10 millimeter bolt. Shout out to Milwaukee, not a sponsor, but they should be because I buy enough of their stuff. Tape measures, Sharpies, drill, impact, squares. I mean, literally everything. Anyway, getting off subject here. Pull that off of there. That'll give us a little bit more clearance on that. And you can see, looks like my breather box is leaking too. This is the gasket that's leaking on this valve cover bolt. And then I think that one is too. We're probably gonna replace those two. That's why I bought two. Yeah, that one may not be leaking. It may just be holding oil. Anyway, so we're gonna pull that valve cover off at some point too, so we can check the valve lash on there while I have the pan off. But anyway, we're gonna hook up our hoist right here. We're gonna go ahead and do that right now. I've got just a straight hook on there. I don't have an engine spreader or anything like that on there. We're going to slide that bar out and hook up. So it's gonna be a pain to deal with. And keep in mind, this engine weighs 1,100 pounds by itself. That doesn't include picking up all the accessories with it and trying to pick the transmission up in the back. Pull your hoist out as far as you can with keeping your chain straight, because you're still going to have to slide under there and you're going to have to work around your spreaders and your outriggers whenever you go to pull the pan off. Now notice, my hoist has all the weight limits written on it. We're rated for 1,000 pounds out at the very end. We're going to be very careful because, like I said, this engine weighs 1,100 pounds by itself without all the other stuff. We're going to check transmission to make sure we're in neutral. Or even we're in reverse. So we're going to pop that down into neutral. That should give us enough room to clear everything. If anything, put it up in a higher, in a gear that's a bit higher on the tree, like first, third, reverse, fifth, something like that. So that as this comes up, it's going to kick that way. That way you keep it away from center console. So we're going to begin very, very gently lifting up, pulling some pressure off of it. And we're going to see what happens. Keep an eye on your radiator because, like I said, those two shroud brackets down there will eat you up. They will get your radiator because they did it to me once before too. Luckily, I had everything disassembled already. We may wind up having to go in and rig a spreader somehow on it just to get it to pick up straight, but hopefully not. We'll see. Oop, I let loose right there. So now I'm going to go down to the bottom and check my radiator. Oop, let's see. Let's see what it looks like from up here. So far it looks like we're good, but I'm going to go down to the bottom and check just to make sure. It's easier to do this when you have help. You can keep an eye on everything. So far we're good. I know we lifted out of the passenger side mount, but we still have a little bit to go to get clear of that pan. And if anything, we may start popping pan bolts so we don't go any farther than we have to while we're at it. So yeah, let's have some fun with that. So I went ahead and changed my mind. It was pulling the engine really off center. So I went ahead and pulled, there's a bolt right there that holds on a wiring harness clip. Put the spreader in here, and then down there I just went back to the the hoist hook. Head bolts work better on that, but hey, I didn't have any head bolts left, so I just did with what I had. So I noticed it's pulling the shroud up really far, so before I go any further, I'm gonna go check my underneath, make sure I'm not, yeah, we're good. It's just pulling the shroud up. Everything's good. Keep an eye on that because you will ruin a radiator. As you can see, it's pulling the whole assembly up now. The nice thing about this spreader is I can pull it up straight too. That's a handy thing about having it. See how everything looks everywhere else. Good there. What about under here? Haven't even pulled it out of the mount yet, so we're still good. Let's see how much more room we gotta have. Oh, that's pretty close to enough room right there. If we can get enough to kick it out. I think I'll go ahead and start pulling pan bolts and go from there. Okay, here we are. You can see the engine mount bolts out of it. That's why we're down here. Before I forget about it, I'm gonna go ahead and pull that out, get it a little bit centered up right there. Make it easier when we go to put it back. So I like one bolt there, 2 bolts on the other side. These are 10 millimeter. You can get most of these with an impact. I used a couple of extensions. You can get most of these with the impact with it picked up like this. I just have a couple or 3 that I got to pull out with a wrench, and then we're gonna drop it and see what we need to do. Oh, I got 3 over here. I got to get 2. We're gonna drop it and see what we got to do to get this out of here. But they are 10 millimeter. Just keep working at it. You'll get them out. Okay, well, as you can see, I got all the pan bolts out, and we're sitting on that cross arm right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep gently lifting it up until I can get this pan to clear this bell crank housing, and then we'll be good. But yeah, that's what the inside looks like, kind of. Let's just start. So I wound up with a valve cover hitting the firewall back here in the back, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the valve cover off. Have to have it off anyway. These are 10 millimeter bolts. If you're working on a Dodge, you better get used to having metrics, specifically a 10, 13, 15, and an 8, because you're going to use those a lot. If you're working on fuel lines and stuff, those are standards, but most of the fasteners and bolts and stuff are going to be metric. I'm going to pull that off. And we're gonna pull this valve cover off, and then I can get a little bit more clearance, lift it up some more. Just be careful not to get any trash or anything down in it while you're working on it. So got the valve cover off. Now we're gonna see if we can lift it up a little bit higher now that we got a little bit more clearance back there. It's about time for lunch, so if I can get this pan out of here, then I'll take a break for lunch. Like I said, the last time I pulled this pan gasket, pulled the oil pan off, I did not even have the head on here. So that was a lot of extra clearance that I got out of that. So anyway, we're going to see if we can get the pan out now that we got the valve cover off. Okay, next hold up is the coolant return line on the head for the heater. It's for the heater. So we're gonna see if we can pull that off. It's in there tight, so we're gonna have to see if we can get it loose. When they put these in, they don't have the valve rack in there. There it goes. Truck's been sitting here for a while, so there's no coolant in this hose up here, luckily. That way I don't have to worry about getting stuff down in the head. Yeah, that's the next hang up. Ta-da! Oil pan. As you can tell here, there's oil all around it, and not all of that is just for me pulling it out. That shouldn't be that easy to come off. Just popped right off. So that's what a bad oil pan gasket looks like, and I'm glad I have a bunch of oil dry too, because this is a messy project. Anyway, I'm gonna go take lunch and buy some shop rags while I'm out. Meantime, I'm about to go clean up and The other thing that you're going to want when you start this project is some good hand cleaner. Honestly, Dawn works the best. This is Dawn hand soap, but it does good. Dawn dish soap does the best, like the blue bottle. It does the best. So yeah, time for lunch now. Okay, so I took the oil pan out and pressure washed it, used some Dawn on it, cleaned it all up inside and out. Then I've wiped it out, wiped all the water out. And now I'm going to take a wire brush and just buff out the edges a little bit where the face of it, where it seals, so that way we can get a good seal on it. Alright, so it's all cleaned up right here on this face. Wipe the pan back out to get all the dust and everything out of there. So now I'm going to set my valve lash. Probably not going to show you all that part just because I don't want this video to be too long and it's not really related. This is more about changing the pan gasket out. So in the meantime, I'm going to drop that motor back down, slide up underneath there, turn the motor over to where I can get top dead center on my cylinders, and then set my valve lash. Okay guys, so I've got my valve lash adjusted, and while I was down there, I cleaned off the face on the bottom of the block. So now we're ready to go ahead and get this gasket prepped and put on. Make sure these bolt holes line up. Flip it over. Make sure everything lines up. Kind of hard to do with one hand. It's flopping everywhere. Okay, there we go. Yeah, everything lines up. So I'm going to take the silicone, put a 3/16 1/4" bead all the way around on the pan. Repeat for the gasket. Slap it back up under there, and then we're going to put our bolts on. You're supposed to give it 24 hours before you put any oil or liquid in there, so I've got to go to work anyway here in a couple minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slap that on there, and then tomorrow morning sometime, tomorrow afternoon maybe, I'll come in and finish the project up. Here we are again. Last day of this project, at least it should be. So, the plan for today, RTV should be set by now. It's where we could put oil in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop it back down in the engine mounts, get it bolted back down to the mounts, and reverse order basically. Basically we'll just do reverse order. I'll drop it back down into the engine mounts, get the engine mounts bolted back up. I need to change the oil filter. I may do that with it up. I gotta look at it. It may be easier to do that with the engine up. The oil filter is right. Oh, how do I get to it? It's right there. That's where the oil filter is. So, I don't know. We'll see. And then I gotta put, the heater nipple back in, put the heater hose back in. So that's bypassed right now anyway. But anyway, we dropped a little bit of coolant out of it whenever I tipped it up. Not much. It wasn't bad. Then I got to put the valve cover back on, tighten these mounts back down, put the air box back in and everything like that. Fill it with oil and crank it up, see how it runs. Hopefully it runs a lot less drippy. I'm tired of this thing bleeding everywhere it goes. So that's where we're at now. And I'll give you an update whenever I get done with most of this, because it's just reverse order from what we took it apart in. So I don't think I really need to explain that part to you. Okay, here's your update. So I took the valve cover. It was really nasty. Took the valve cover, dropped a new bolt in, and actually the bolt's over here. I already threw the bolt away, but can't find it now. Anyway, I went ahead and replaced the valve cover bolt. That was bad. The grommet on it had a split here and a split here, so that's why it was leaking. Anyway, I went ahead and took some brake cleaner, cleaned up the valve cover, got it all nice and clean. That way now when I put it all back together, I can check it. I may leave the plastic cover off of it for a little bit just to see if it leaks again, and that way I'll know which one of these I need to do. It's not hard to put the plastic cover back on. It's just these 4 10mm bolts. So I'm going to drop this back on there. And of course, I've got my breather tubes in the way. There's one, there's one. Those are out of the way now. Now that sits back down on there. We could tighten this back down right here. And then we're gonna fill it up with some oil. Okay guys, so I'm going to leave the plastic valve cover trim off so I can tell if any more of these grommets are leaking. I just stuck the bolts in there to keep from losing them. I've checked the radiator, made sure it's still got fluid in it. What else? Filled it with oil. Takes 12 quarts of oil. I use Shell Rotella. Put 12 quarts, 3 gallons of oil in it. Went ahead and put my air box back on. Make sure you plug your MAF sensor back in. Make sure you put your breather box. Make sure you put the tubes back on there. Check your oil level. Oil level looked good on mine. Put the heater hose nipple back in there. But there's also one other thing that I want to show you. This one's very important. Very important because it will cost you a lot of headache down the road. So underneath here, on kind of the driver's side, on the bottom of your fan shroud, you see this right here? See where this bracket is right here? So there's a wire, well, there's a wire loom that runs through there, and it runs right through here underneath your fan shroud. That is your fan clutch power cable right there. Make sure when you put this all back together, I'll show you how to check it. Make sure when you put it all back together that you can take, let me get under here, that you can take this fan and you can turn this fan and it not hit that. You can feel it if it scrapes it. Make sure you don't feel that, because this may get bent when you lift the engine. This little metal bracket right here may get bent. If that gets bent up and catches in the fan, you are going to lose your fan clutch. And you're going to kick yourself 5,000 times because you're going to have to replace it from here all the way back up. It's a pain in the butt. You're going to rip a lot of stuff out probably. It's not going to be fun. So, now we're ready to turn it on. Ready to crank it up. I'm going to crank it long enough to get oil pressure. Let it idle for a minute probably. I'm covered in oil, so I'm not really looking forward to getting in here. These seats aren't the best anyway, but I'm going to try to keep from touching the leather on the console. Remember, I did valve lash too, so hopefully it won't have a rough idle to it. We have oil pressure. We have good oil pressure actually. That's better oil pressure than I've had in a while. That gauge isn't all that accurate anyway, so can't always trust it. We're gonna let it run for a little bit. Apparently my valve lash was out pretty bad because it was tapping pretty bad when I pulled it up in the shop, and it's just quiet, smooth purring right now. A lot more smooth. All right, well, I think we're good. sure you put your transmission mount back together too. I forgot to mention that. Gotta put the transmission mount back. You got to pull it out. I'm gonna write this project off as complete. You can see in there a lot of that oil burning off the turbo and stuff. That's normal. A lot of oil, a little bit of antifreeze. That's nothing to worry about. Oil filter's not dripping. The oil plug's not dripping. I think we're good. Now I want to take it at some point and I want to soak it in Dawn. I'm not going to laugh at that. But I want to soak the entire undercarriage of the truck with Dawn so that hopefully I can get that all clean and I can see if I have any more leaks. Hopefully I don't. Hopefully that's all of them, but you never know. These trucks, they're gonna leak. At some point, they will start leaking. It's a Cummins, it's a diesel. Diesels leak, they leak nasty black oil. It's absolutely horrendous. But they don't have to leak prematurely. So, glad I changed the oil pan gasket. Be prepared to look like this when you get done. It was worse yesterday before I went to work. I got a pair of clothes that I keep just for working on the truck so that I can crawl under here and get all dirty and nasty and it's not gonna hurt anything. So, until next time, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. You can find all your torque specs and everything online. I'm not providing those for you, sorry guys. I suggest finding a website that's got all the torque specs you need on there, screenshot it, call it good. That's what I suggest you do. You don't have to, but that's what I would do. So, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Go take me a shower with a bunch of Dawn dish soap. You're gonna think I'm kidding, but I actually shower with Dawn dish soap when I get like this. It works. So, y'all like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have anything you want to know about. I work on this truck pretty regularly. Not necessarily out of pleasure, but more out of necessity sometimes. So, I'll catch y'all later.